Good evening, teacher, and my dear classmates. Today I'm going to speak about the configuring of the Layer 3 redundancy with the HSRP protocol. We'll be seeing about implementing Layer 3 with high availability. HSR operation. With the HSRP, let's say we have two routers, router 1 and router 2. In this case, we'll be seen as only one router. HSRP uses virtual MAC and IP addresses for the two routers to represent with host as a single default gateway. For example, the virtual IP address, which is the HSRP, is 192.168.1.254, and the virtual MAC is 0000.0C07, which is 16-bit. And all the hosts will point their default gateway to this IP address. We'll see here we have a networking diagram, which it seems the internet, the router 1 and the router 2, but in the middle we have the virtual router. Then we have the switches, the switch which connects the internet to the host or default machines. One router through the election process is designated as active router, while the other router is designated as standby router. Both active and standby router listen, but only the active router proceeds and forwards packets. Standby router is backup. When active router fails by monitoring periodic hellos sent by the active router, multicast to 124.002 UDP port to detect the failure of the active router. This is like a backup. When a failure on the active router detected, the standby router assumes the role of forwarding router. Because the new forwarding router uses the same virtual IP and MAC addresses, the hosts see no disruption in communication. A new standby router is also elected at the time in the case of there are more than two routers in a HSRP group. But all routers in an HSRP group send hello packets. By default, the hello timer is set to only 3 seconds, and the dead timer is set to 10 seconds. It means that a hello packet is sent between the HSRP standby group device every 3 seconds. We have here an active and standby router. The active router, like I said before, responds to ARP request of the default gateway with the MAC addresses of the virtual router. It assumes the active forwarding of packets for the virtual router, sends hello messages, knows the virtual router IP address. The backup or standby router listens for a periodic hello messages, assumes the active forwarding of packets if no messages heard from active router. We have 6 states which HSRP router can be in one of 5. The initial, listen, speak, standby, and active. The initial state is the state of start, is the beginning of configuration. The listen, the router knows the virtual IP address. It listens for the hello messages from another router. Speak, the router sends periodic hello messages and actively participates in the election of active or standby router. The standby, the router is a candidate to become the next active router and sends periodic hello messages. And the active, the router currently forwards packets that are sent to the group virtual MAC addresses. The virtual periodic hello messages. This is a graphic of router redundancy failover. This happens when the standby router happens to fail, and the standby router becomes virtual router, and the forwarding router becomes the core for the internet packages. We have a priority and preemption. The device with the highest priority is in HSRP group becomes the active router, the one that sends packages. The default priority is 100. In the case of a tie, the router with the highest configured IP address will become active. Preemption enables the higher priority device to become active. We have the commands using with the Cisco packet tracer. We type interface beeline 10 and we type the IP address, which is 10.1.1.2 and the subnet mask, and we set the standby point. We have a lot of timers. We have when active HSRP fails, timers can determine how fast standby should become active. The timer configuration, we can configure time, which becomes better if we have a delay timer so that preemption occurs after the switch has fully rebooted and has established fully connectivity to the network. We should stand by at least 10 timers every 200 milliseconds. We can of course monitoring HSRP showing the command show standby brief, and we indicate the configure preempt. A single default gateway or proxy ARP does not provide the redundancy that is required in a campus network. HSRP provides router redundancy to end devices. It is configured using the standby command for each interface.
En este momento voy a proceder a la configuración. Vamos a explicar cómo configurar el HSRP. Lo primero que he hecho ha sido configurar la IP sobre la LAN. De acuerdo, tenemos varios grupos de IP. Por ejemplo, que tenemos una empresa, va a ser los que cubre el grupo de IP 10.0.0.0, más arriba el 20.0, el 30.0, 40.0 y para finalizar el grupo 50.0.0.0. ¿Okay? Veamos entre los switch. El switch 2 no tiene la prioridad. Como queríamos que fuera el primario, introducimos los siguientes comandos. Configure terminal, spanning tree. Utilizamos el protocolo spanning tree. VLAN 1 prioridad. La prioridad la más baja que podamos para hacer 4096 para que él sea el root bridge. Y para confirmar que todo está perfectamente, vamos a ver con show spam cómo el root va a ser exactamente el mismo que la dirección de nuestro switch 2. A continuación configuramos el HSRP, que consiste en establecer una IP virtual para evitar problemas de fallo. Esto va a ser configurando los dos routers, el 0 y el 1. El router 0, configure terminal. Vamos a decirle qué interfaz es la que queremos configurar. En este caso el 00, Fast Ethernet 00. Le voy a introducir nuestra IP virtual, que en este caso va a ser 10.0.0.1. Es decir, ¿cuál es su prioridad? Le vamos a decir. En este caso, cuanto más alta, más prioridad tiene. Al revés que un spanning tree. Y para finalizar, preempt. Introducimos este comando que voy a comunicar. En el otro router se realiza lo mismo y vamos a ver. Configure terminal. Interface Fast Ethernet. Interface Fast Ethernet 00. Standby. Nuestra IP que tenemos configurada 10.0.01. Y ahora vamos a introducir menos prioridad anterior. Así tendremos que por donde va a salir por defecto va a ser por el router 0. standby, priority, prompt. Muy bien. Entonces, hemos utilizado en ambos este comando. Este comando lo hemos utilizado porque en caso de que el primario caiga, entonces tendremos un backup. Se recupera la recuperación del switch 2 para que no se pierda la información. Configuremos que este vuelva a tener la prioridad que le habíamos asignado anteriormente. Entonces, para finalizar, lo único que nos falta hacer es coger uno por uno de las computadoras y decirles cuál va a ser su nueva puerta enlace, la dirección IP virtual que hemos asignado de la red que hemos escogido. Vamos a coger nuestro router, configurarle las rutas estáticas hacia donde queramos dirigir la red.